What's up, JEFusion fans? This is Philip, and welcome back to another video. So, I love swords. I have probably said this many times in many different videos across this channel, but I do love swords. I'm not gonna lie. And in the Super Sentai franchise, there are so many swords, typically wielded by Red Rangers. And when you think of swords, you think of the Red Rangers, but a lot of Super Sentai teams also use swords as part of their regular arsenal, like a sidearm. So, with that said, I am going to talk about my top 10 swords from the Super Sentai franchise. So, this is a list that's not going to come in a very specific order. So, this is actually like a random list, and also, this list is going to be purely subjective, so based on my personal opinion alone. So if you don't agree, that's fine. Let me know your personal favorite swords down in the comment section below. So with that said, let's begin. And what better way to start off this video than with the Oger caliber from Osama Sentai King Oger. So since I have this bad boy right here, I might as well start off this list with this one. So yeah, so the Ogre Caliber is the transformation device and main weapon of the King Ogres. Now, they also have the King's weapon, which they can transform into their signature weapons, but most of the time, the King Ogres fight with only these, and this is enough to take out most enemies. So each King Ogre can charge their weapon 3 times, and they also have like unique effects when they perform their finishers. Like for example, Tombo Ogre can produce whirlwinds, and Hachi Ogre can produce fire slashes. So again, the King Ogre's Ogre caliber is basically enough to finish most battles. Yeah. So with that said, moving on to number 2 with Shinkenmaru from Samurai Sentai Shinkenger. So unlike the Ogre caliber, the Shinkenmaru is a sidearm, and well, the Shinkenmaru can transform into the Shinkenger's signature weapons, like the Rekka Daizanto, for example. Although most of the time, when you look at the Shinkengers fighting enemies, even like tougher characters, like boss characters, for example, you will see them using only the Shinkenmaru, and that would also be enough for them to win most battles. So, uh, you do have the origami discs, and using them powers up or charges your Shinkenmaru, so you can do like finishers with it. And again, it will defeat most enemies, even bosses or the monsters of the week. So, yeah, you probably don't need to transform your Shinkenmaru into a signature weapon, or unless if you're using the Rekka Daizanto's Ozutsu mode, then probably you should. But again, even in Super mode or Super Shinkenger mode, the Shinkengers actually fight only with the Shinkenmaru in hand, if you look at it that way. So, yeah, the Shinkenmaru is a sidearm, but it is like a damn good sidearm. So, like, this is me going on a bit of a tangent here, but like, if I were to rate Super Sentai series or any Super Sentai show based on the amount of swordplay in it, like I do think Shinkenger is S tier. Like sure there are other you know Super Sentais that have a lot of swordplay in them, like King Oger, for example. But Shinkenger was the first for me to get that S tier, just because of the amount of swordplay you see in that show. But anyways, moving on to the next one, which is the Ninja Ichibanto from Shuriken Sentai Ninja. So there are, of course, like other ninja-based swords uh, in the franchise, but look. like comparing the ninja swords, like I do think the Ninja Ichibanto can get you the most utility. Okay, so I think it is the most useful out of the out of all the ninja Sentai swords, ninja based Sentai swords. But anyways, so let me explain. Now, first off, the Ninja Ichibanto is the transformation device and main weapon of the ninjas. So just like the older caliber, and using their shurikens, so combining it with their shurikens, the ninjas can perform special techniques like the ninja isen, which is basically using their regular shurikens or their transformation shurikens and using it to charge the sword and slash any enemy, even bosses, and defeating them. So that is already enough. However, they do have elemental shurikens as well, and like the core five Shinken. Sorry, I I am so addicted to Shinkenger. Sorry, but yeah, so the core five ninjas have elemental shurikens that they can also use to charge their ninja ichibanto, enabling them to do elemental attacks. Let's say fire, water. They can grow vines using the wood element, and well, for some reason, they can drop a metal tub on your head with the gold element. So yeah, but again, like you have, like in my personal opinion, like you get much more utility out of them compared to the other ninja-based swords in the franchise. So moving on, we have the Ryusoken from uh, Kishiryu Sentai Ryu Soldier. So it is a sidearm that the all the Ryu soldiers use, but it is a common sidearm, but it is also their main weapon. So the Ryu soldiers don't really have any signature weapons, so they do use Ryu souls in order to get like extra armor, and along that they also get like power ups or like some certain effects, like for example the Tsuyoso does increase strength, but if you also have like more powerful souls like the meta soul, for example, like you can get more powerful armor plus the ability to use elemental attacks. So uh, with that said, again, most of the time, actually all the time, the Ryu soldiers use their Ryusoken to fight, and again, that's basically enough to deal a lot of damage to all enemies that they face, even bosses. So uh, they do get the Ryuso caliber later on, which is actually the sword which all of the Ryusoken are based from. So, but again, it's more of a power up item, and not all the Ryu soldiers use it. But the Ryusoken is, again, like a pretty useful sword, in my opinion, and it is quite powerful as well. So, moving on, we have Zuban from Gogo Sentai Bokenger. So Zuban is actually a character, and you can say he is the Bangai hero of the show or the extra hero. But Zuban can turn into a sword, and typically it is Boken Red who uses Zuban in his sword mode. And yeah, of course, the Bokengers have their Survive Blasters that turn into Survive Blades. So, like, it's a dual mode weapon that has gun and sword modes, but of course, like Zuban is the more powerful sword, obviously. So, uh, but I forgot which episode it was, but Boken Black, when he fought against an enemy, his Survive Blade broke and asked Boken Red to hand Zuban over to him. And Boken Red said, "No, let me show you how it's done." So using only the Survive Blade, Boken Red was actually able to defeat that monster. So without the use of Zuban, but well, it was a badass moment in my opinion. But Zuban is a badass weapon to have, like, and if you need to, like, you can transform him into his humanoid mode, and he'll fight alongside you. So that's another advantage of having Zuban as a weapon. So next, I'm going to talk about the Vibe Blade from Car Ranger. So the Vibe Blade is a sidearm wielded by all 5 Car Rangers. So Red Racer has the Fender sword, so he can use 2 swords in battle. But why do I prefer the Vibe Blade over the Fender sword? So, like, from the looks of it, like, it's more visually appealing. Like, I just think it looks better, and it is also quite a simple sword if you look at it. So, a lot of like Super Sentai sword sidearms that came before uh, Car Ranger, like, a lot of them are slim bladed. Like, they're longer, but they are slimmer. However, the Viblade has like a broadsword type of feel to it, like making it look stronger than other Super Sentai sword sidearms up until that point. Like, for me, when I look at the Viblade, it looks more powerful than the Fender sword. And pulling the lever at the pommel of the Viblade actually charges the sword for a finishing attack. So yeah, if I were Red Racer, for example, I probably would use the Viblade more than the Fender sword, but that's just my personal choice. So I'm actually looking at the list right here. So next, I am going to talk about the Vector swords from Time Ranger, and the Vector swords are actually a pair of swords. So each Time Ranger gets 2 swords, and you can combine them together at the pommels for like a lance mode, or I don't know, naginata mode, or but they just call it like a combined mode. But the depending on the ranger, the use of the vector swords can be different. For example, red, green, and pink use their vector swords as like separate pair, but uh, time blue and time yellow combine them, and that's how they typically fight. And you also uh, get like different finishers depending on the rangers. So, like, for example, beat 3, beat 9, beat 6 for red, green, and pink respectively, and then you have beat X and beat divide for blue and yellow respectively. But what I like about the vector swords is their aesthetic. So, like, you have transparent blades. So I guess that's how swords are created in the future, I guess. But yeah, I do like the transparent blade aesthetic of the vector swords, and they look pretty powerful to me. So next we have Ho-Oh Blade from uh, Q Ranger. So Ho-Oh Soldier is admittedly one of my favorite Red Rangers. So yes, he's a Red Ranger. Technically, he can also be counted as 6 Ranger, so his weapon counts. So the Ho-Oh Blade actually comes with a Ho-Oh Shield, so they come as a set, and uh, they're also together the transformation device for Ho-Oh Soldier. Now, what strikes me most about the Ho-Oh Blade is that when Ho-Oh Soldier made his debut, so he was able to cut down enemy warships, and he hasn't even had his robot yet. That's how powerful the Ho-Oh Blade is, and that's how powerful of a warrior Ho-Oh Soldier is. So but the fact that you get a sword and shield as a combination, like you get both offense and defense, and depending on how you use the combination of the Ho-Oh blade and Ho-Oh shield, like, you can also get certain effects. So you can get a pretty decent amount of versatility from that weapon set as well. So next we have the Gabori caliber from Kyoryu Sentai. Not sorry, not Kyoryu Sentai Ranger. I made a mistake there, but the Juden Sentai Kyoryuger. There you go. Sorry for the previous mistake. But yeah, the Gaburi caliber, I think I like it because of its visuals. It looks quite simple, but I really think it looks nice. Like visually speaking, it's like a good looking sword. I'm not sure if it's gonna be S tier or like an A tier at least, but it's a nice looking sword in my opinion. It's not too complicated. Sure, you just need to insert one Judenchi to charge it and basically have a finishing attack. Uh, but you know, it's okay. Yeah, but again, like what I like about it is its aesthetic basically. But it is again like a nice looking sword. Now, technically, all the Kyoryugers have it. Well, the core five at least. The core five use their Gaburi caliber. Uh, Kyoryu Violet also uses the Kyoryu Violet also has a Gaburi caliber, but doesn't use it much. Like whether it's Professor Ulshade or Yayoi Ulshade, they don't really use the Gaburi caliber that often. I think the one who uses the Gaburi caliber the most would be Kyoryu Green, because he's the swordsman of the core 5. Although, yeah, sometimes you also see Kyoryu Red use the Gaburi caliber, but again, most of the time it's Kyoryu Green. But yeah, again, it's basically because of the aesthetic why I chose it. And moving on to the last sword in this list, we have the Seijuken from Seiju Sentai Gingaman. Now, the Seijuken is the main sidearm for the Gingaman, and well, technically, it's also their main weapon. And with the Seijuken, you can perform elemental attacks with it, so it is nice. It is decently powerful in my opinion. It also looks quite nice. Like you can actually turn it into a more compact mode to put in your holster, and then when you pull it out, it becomes a longer sword. So it looks nice. And then when the Gingamen get their power up, or the Ginga no Hikari power up, so the Seijuken also changes its form a little bit, but yeah, it's also a more powerful weapon at that point. So those are my top 10 Super Sentai swords. I should probably put here like a 2023 edition, because maybe one day like there might be new swords, or my opinions might change on the swords that I've talked about. So, anyways, that's it for this video. Like I've said earlier, if you don't agree with this list, that's fine. You can tell me your personal favorite Super Sentai swords down in the comment section below. So with that said, thank you so much for watching, and as always, please do leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, and don't forget that notification bell so you get the latest from JEFusion. This has been Philip, and I'll see you next time. Bye.